Lab 11, modifying linked clone desktops. All right, so in this lab, we are going to do a recompose operation. We're going to install some software on the gold image, and then we're going to recompose. So if you are moving from lab to lab, you may have some of the steps already completed as far as opening the desktops and whatnot, but if you haven't, the first thing we're going to do is crack open the VMV student machine, which is right here. We're going to log into the vSphere client as we have in the past, and we're going to right click on CLA and open the console. Go ahead and log in there with your favorite password, and we'll launch the View client. We'll hit that connection server, and we're going to log in with View User A because we're on client A again. So View User A, and again our password that we love so much. And then we're going to choose the Marketing Win 7 desktop that we just recently created. Okay, we can minimize that for now, and we'll do the same thing for CLB. Go ahead and right click and open console. If you happen to get this message from the cloning process, which you probably saw in a previous lab, again, just go ahead and click Start Windows normally. And of course, we'll log in here. And same thing, launch the View client, but now we're on client B, so we're going to log in with View User B. When prompted. So we'll go View User B. And we'll launch the Win 7 desktop. So again, we're two different users. We're going to get two different desktops. If you look at client A and client A shuts down, just like in a previous lab, what you've done there is you've logged in with View User A twice. So make sure you're using View User A on client A and View User B on client B. Otherwise, what you're doing is just stealing that desktop back and forth. Okay, we can minimize that guy. And now we're going to edit our gold image. So the Win 7 image was the gold image, if you recall. If it's not powered on, go ahead and click on, right-click on it, go to Power, and go to Power On. Mine's already powered on, so the next step is going to be to open the console. And it'll probably be waiting for a password or asking for Control-Delete, so we're going to go to Guest, send Control-Delete. Super secret password. Wait for the network to come up there. Okay. And then now it's telling us in the documentation to go to the File Explorer menu here. And for some reason, we're going to type it this way, but okay. We'll do, likewise, you could go down here and you could type it there like we've been doing in the past, but for some reason documentation is telling you to go this way, which is fine. We're going to go to shares, and then we're actually going to go into other this time. If you see on the documentation there, we're going into VMVAD shares other, and we're going to go into Foxit because we're going to install the Foxit reader. So let's go ahead and launch the setup program. And of course, I'm pausing the recording. Yours may take much longer to actually load up there, depending on how many people are working at the exact same time. We'll accept the agreement, and then let's go ahead, and we don't want all this other garbage, so we'll turn that off, and we'll click Next. And are we going to take the default location? Yes, we'll take the default location, and we'll let it install with default configurations. We'll click Next. And then finally install. And we'll finish up. I guess we'll let it launch one time just to make sure it worked. And hey, there you go. Everything looks great. We'll click OK to make that go away. We can close this guy out here as well. So our software has been installed. Our gold image has been updated. So if you're installing a new software, if you're updating, putting patches, Microsoft patches, that's a common way to reason to recompose. If you're applying the latest and greatest patches, do all that work, and then before the gold image is actually done, there's one last thing you have to do. Now, if you're running antivirus software, there's a couple of other things you may or may not have to do. But one thing you definitely have to do before you recompose your gold image is you have to release the IP address. So in the lab documentation, it tells you just to run the ipconfig command straight from the search menu here, which is absolutely fine. But I'm anal and I like to actually make sure that the command completed successfully. So I always go to the command prompt first. So you just type cmd in there. It'll pop up your little command window here, or DOS prompt, whatever you want to call it. And I usually type my IP release in here just because I like to make sure it actually works. And there you go. So what we're doing there is we're releasing the IP address as it says. It's not 100% absolutely have to do this, but it's really a good idea because you can have IP conflicts and issues if you don't. So definitely something you should go ahead and do. And then we're going to go down here and we're going to shut this guy down because we're done. All right, we can close that window out. And then as soon as we see it's done shutting down, we're going to go in here and take a snapshot. So wait for this to refresh. Okay, once that arrow goes away, you know it's turned off. Now we can go down in here and we can do take snapshot. And this time, so we had our baseline in there. This time we're going to call it something different. And go with something descriptive. Fox installed. And if you have more information to say about it, that's what the actual name of the snapshot is going to be, and so that's what you're going to point to in the view administrator. So I would keep this kind of brief, if you will. A lot of times what I'll do, in my environments, I make sure I put, so basically a brief description, really brief, couple words of what was done. So this is perfect, Fox installed. And then what I normally do is I'll go in and I'll put my initials and the date as well. If you have multiple admins, the date really helps out, and also the initials, so you know who did it. And then you can put additional information in here if you have, maybe you did Microsoft patches and you installed Fox Reader and you did, a couple other things. So we'll click OK and we'll move on. So once you see that snapshot is done, which happens really quick, we're going to run on over to the View Administrator console here. And if it's not already open, we're going to open up Catalog and go Desktop Pools. And we're going to select our marketing pool. Once we're in here, we're going to go to the View Composer. And we're going to recompose. You get a dialog like this popping up. The parent VM, we don't have to change because we're using the same VM. But if you had a pool that was existing and like you didn't update the gold image, but you created a brand new gold image, you can keep that same pool so people could log off and reconnect. You could actually point to a brand new parent image. But in this case, we're going to keep the same parent image. We're just going to pick the new snapshot here. So we go ahead and click on that, because that's our new snapshot that we just created. And we're going to click next. And so a lot of different options here. If you want to start this at a very specific time, like maybe you want it to happen at midnight, or everybody goes home, let's say at like 6 o'clock, or by 6 o'clock you can assume everybody's gone home, and we want to fire this off at 7 o'clock when nobody's around, you can set that to kind of occur at a specific time. And then you could force them to log off altogether, or you can do wait till users log off. So it'll just wait until they're done, and when they log off at the end of the day, then it'll just automatically reboot or something like that. You can also set a log off delay time here if you wanted to go down here and set a log off delay, and then you can send a message as well saying your desktop is scheduled for an important update or something like that. But according to the lab documentation, we're going to go ahead and select the option to wait for users to log off. We'll click next, and then we're presented with the confirmation window here. So make sure everything's right. If you want to click on show details, we can show details and it'll show you what all is going to be affected by this. Since we only have a pool of 2, you're only seeing 2 pools here. It'll show you the current, basically the current parent, the current snapshot, and then where it's going to go to here. We'll click finish, and then everything should be off and running. If you want to go back to inventory, you can go back to inventory and you can watch the process occur here. You'll see that the users are connected right now, and we have a Recompose task that is pending. Okay, because your machines are connected and we decided to tell it to wait for user to log off, nothing's happening. So it's going to stay here for, forever at Recompose. And that's why we opened up those screens ahead of time. So let's go to, I think according to the lab, it wants you to go to CLB first. Okay. So we'll go to CLB and we're going to have to log off. Otherwise, this will sit here forever. I think the lab actually tells you to go up here and do like options, disconnect. I guess you can do that. That's fine. You could also do log off from the start menu. It really doesn't matter. We'll disconnect and log off. I think that's what they tell us to do. So we'll do that. And as soon as that disconnects, again, we're not disconnecting from CLB. We're disconnecting from the virtual desktop that CLB is connected to. I know, it's annoyingly confusing the way this lab is set up. So we're disconnected. Now, let's go back and look at the connection, the administrator console. So now you'll see, hey, look, something's happening. And what's happening is the process for this Recompose for client 2, right? Number 2 is what we had connected to with our CLB. If we open this up, expand this a little bit, you'll see it was user B that was connected here, right? So that one's in process. It's going to take a little bit, so I'll probably go on pause here and come back when it's all done. But before I do that, let's go over to the vSphere client, and you can see all kinds of fun stuff happening here. So remember, with a linked clone, the very first thing that happens is you have your gold image, but the gold image isn't what's actually referenced by the live linked clones. The very first process that occurs, again, is a replica is created. So the very first thing that you'll see that's happening here is once this is fired off, a full clone is made of the parent image. And so VMV_W7, which is our gold image, our parent image, it's being cloned. So we're making a full copy, and that is going to end up showing up right here. It's one of these two. I don't know if there's really a way to tell which one is which, but one of these is what's being cloned here. And so this is the replica, and this is a full copy, and that's what will be referenced by the link clones going forward. Now, because I'm in the middle of a recompose process here, I'm going to have 2 replicas, right? This will be the one for client B that's in the process, and then this will be for any existing ones that haven't been. Well, this is actually powering that client B if I was connected, but it's also the session A that's still connected, and it's also when the recompose process is completed, then it will the replica will be deleted, the old one. Well, so as you may have noticed, the environment crashed in the middle of the demo here. So as it's rebuilding, you'll see it's coming back to life now. I think you guys can finish the rest of the lab on your own. There's only a few more steps. I guess I don't have to show you what that is, but bottom line is we had disconnected from the B machine, the CLB connecting to the second ESXi, the second virtual machine that was out there, ESXi X02. We connected to that with user B, and when we disconnected from that, fired off the recompose process that we had already queued up. And then, so what we were going to show you is if you then logged into or went back to your client B and found that session, you'd notice that the Foxit reader was installed now. It came from that gold image, and so it would be available. By the same token, since you hadn't logged out of the client A or user A machine yet, if you went and looked at that, it would still have the old image, so you would not see Foxit Reader. So you're having a pool basically in kind of a split state where you have two separate replicas, and then as soon as you as the lab documentation tells you to, go in there and log off of client A or user A. The same thing will happen. It'll kick off that recompose that you queued up, and then client A or user A will come back up to the same rev or the same image that the first one was. And that's pretty much it. There's a couple other things they talk about in the lab documentation. I mean, obviously they have you launch Foxit just to make sure that it works. And then, you can go under tasks for the pool. So if we go into tasks here, then you can see what's actually happening. So the recompose, it tells you what it's doing, changing this particular, virtual machine to this. It shows you the whole path and all that kind of stuff. What else? I suppose that's it. Yeah, so finish off the lab. I'm not going to demo that stuff because the environment blew up on me, but that's how that all works.